Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
1, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine forever, but as long as it's here, then we might as well shine together. Better now than never. Business before pleasure. P. Diddy and the fam.
Back here with another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on a Thursday night. I am being produced here on LateNightSportsRadio.com by Keith Reeve, extraordinaire, and I'm joined by Johnny Maloris from WindyCitySports.com. But first, I'd like to talk to you guys about DraftKings.com. Millionaires are being made all season long at DraftKings.com. America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. One-week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Got an injured player? No problem. At DraftKings.com, it's like a new season every week, so you're never stuck with the same players. Pick your teams in minutes, and you could be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000. And new millionaires have been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be the next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day just playing fantasy football at DraftKings.com. Sounds like a dream come true, right? Get free entry into their $100,000 fantasy football contest this weekend, where first place takes home $10,000. Head to DraftKings.com now and enter the promo code Spreaker to play for free. DraftKings.com, bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker for free entry now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. John,
and honestly, I think we need to work something out where we create like a weekly matchup on DraftKings. Because honestly, I mean, I even hear these ads on like other stations, like especially ones that I listen to out here in Chicago, naturally. And I mean, it seems like, you know, it's always about picking that right match. Is where you hear these guys winning buco bucks. Is where, you know, you have your salary cap and you find some guy in the cheap, and then all of a sudden he blows up one game. And I mean, I've been hearing about that every week now about Jared Allen. This guy's about to break out. He's about to get 9 sacks, right?
Well, it's so much more convenient, especially for guys like me, where you don't have to set a lineup every week. I'm terrible at, you know, paying attention and making sure I'm setting lineups, and then I get kicked out of the league at the end of the year. Here, you don't have to worry about getting kicked out of a league. You just do your own thing, 1 week at a time, 1 week out of the year, whatever you want to do, and it's no season-long commitments. It sounds ideal for people like me and you and anybody.
Oh, well, I mean, we all know you're the king of non-commitment. So, I mean, Keepers League, I mean, you're a toss-em league kind of guy. I know that for sure.
Exactly. Well, Johnny, how you doing today?
Nah, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I heard you guys had a little bit of snow over in Chicago this week.
I'm literally watching snow fall on my windshield as we speak.
It's disgusting. I'm getting sick and tired of this snow. We had about a half an inch or something, maybe a quarter of an inch, whatever it was. There was a little ice. Everybody freaked out, and the roads were a disaster this week. The mayor of Omaha has to get it together.
It drives me crazy. The people that want to complain about the cold. I mean, here, okay, so I went to school in the UP for 5 years. I was on a 5-year plan, and I much prefer the cold, over the hot, because at least you can kind of prepare for the cold. When it comes down to being hot, you have stinky, slimy, smelly people like rubbing up on you. Try going to a festival. Good Lord. I went to Riot Fest earlier on in the year here, and that was quite the mess, especially with all the rain and the mud. I mean, honestly, I think Saturday was worse than Friday when we had all the rain. Saturday's kind of trudging through, man. Everybody had the clot hopping boots on. It was just disgusting. But, Yeah, no, it definitely got to love the cold, right?
Yeah, it's, I'm kind of, I feel like if I moved out of the Midwest, somewhere in the South, I would miss the fall, and I'd miss the spring, but I wouldn't miss the dead cold of winter at all.
No, you gotta love it. It makes you feel alive, man. You get that brisk, that lung piercing, nostril piercing, fresh air, cold air down your lungs, man. It's great.
Well, don't you think there's something to athletes, from, Texas and Florida and, Southern California that, they just don't have that toughness that, Midwestern, Northeast, Northwest people have, because they have to deal with the elements in the winter. So like in baseball season, late in the season, those Texas players, guys from who grew up in Texas, aren't used to that, and it kind of, they don't have that, that gutsy feeling. Like Kershaw, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you can bring up the Midwestern toughness. Don't call it Chicago tough, because when it comes down to the Bears, I mean, they pretty much collapsed. It's basically the flip flop. When it comes down to playing in cold weather, they can't handle it too well. But I mean, look at the SEC. I mean, these guys playing beautiful weather. They're all from football states down south. They play in great weather. You get to deal with all the great conditions, but it's definitely dealing something different when you come into a little colder weather and a little colder climate. I don't know, man, but when it comes down to guys like Lester and things like that, I think a lot of that just has to do with how much they throw and how often they throw. And it was cool to see MLB throw out that use initiative. That was great.
Yeah. With Major League Baseball, MVPs announced today. Kershaw in the National League, Mike Trout in the American League. Did they? Obviously, the American League, I don't think there was a question. I mean, even if you looked at the numbers, I think Trout should have won, even though this probably wasn't his best year of his 3 MVP candidacy years. And then Kershaw, if Mike Stanton doesn't get injured, he probably doesn't win it. More of an he won based on opportunity. What's your take?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would we talked last week. A big thing. I thought Giancarlo was probably had pretty good odds to win it, but when you do come down, when it does come down to the fact that he did get injured, season was cut a little bit short. He doesn't get the MVP here, but I think take a 10-year, $300 million contract would probably make you feel at least a little bit better about that, right?
Yeah, $300 million for Stanton. The question I have is, will the Florida, Miami Marlins, whatever they are calling themselves these days, will they make $300 million over the time of that contract?
Well, I mean, I think they pretty much already made their money, even though they only draw, about 3,000 fans that came. No, a lot of it does have to do with, I feel, they've been confident and have shown that they've been able to, build a pretty steady farm system, in particular when it comes to pitching, when it always comes down to that, especially now in the new, more PED, stringent league, where they're paying more attention to that kind of stuff. You've seen hitting go on the wayside, especially particularly in terms of power, but, even more so in terms of right-handed power. A lot of the power that you're seeing, out of the hitters in the major leagues have all been coming from the left-hand side of the plate. And so, you see that major shift, and that only makes pitching more prevalent. And that's something that, Theo Epstein was, very important, aspect of his philosophy when he was with Boston, along with Ben Sherrington, was pitching, same thing. Even with Oakland, even though a lot of people want to call it Moneyball, is more so, finding the right player at the right position and kind of playing the platoons and the matchups. A lot of what they did, and I think it's a lot of things that, kind of upset people about Moneyball, was that they didn't focus on the pitching. And I think now that's the one thing about Miami is that they've been able to develop that, their pitching. And I think, at some point here, there's been a lot of talk on and off over the last, couple of years here since Theo did take over with the Cubs, was that, eventually they were going to work out a deal with some of their offensive prospects and to flip them out for some of Miami's, pitching prospects. And so I think, that's a big part of, why Miami would feel confident enough to sign him to a $300 million contract is the fact that they do have a steady influx of young players. And right now, kind of the more intriguing thing is that a lot of the offensive players that were coming up through the system, the guys like Christian Yelich and, Marcell Ozuna, a lot of these guys are finally now developing and about ready to start kind of hitting their peak. They've gone through their adjustments. And so I think this is a good time for Miami to kind of make a decision that, rather than going out and buying a bunch of guys, we'll lock down our one stud while you can. Obviously they're overpaying for him a little bit, but if that's what it takes to lock him down, you have to do it.
How many years until Jeff Luria of the Marlins gets bored and has a fire sale with all these players?
Well, it's this whole thing. They really don't have anybody to sell off right now. The way it's looking, this is all obviously, Giancarlo's still going through arbitration. But if you look at it, they have, $15.6 million, alone right now, lockdown guaranteed contract that they have committed to this season. But when you look at the arbitration figures, you figure in about another $33.3 million, which brings them up to about roughly $49 million. And they are looking to raise, their salary a little bit, maybe not too much. But when it comes down to locking a guy in like that, you got to do it. And like I said, there's not really, many other players that you can sell off at this point. They've been really smart. Obviously outside of that, the one crazy year in 2012 where they went for it all, for half a season. It seems like they've always been smart up until that one, misnomer, so it's, you kind of got to look past that. They're not going to sell everything off. It's just they're a team that they're going to allow guys at times like Giancarlo Stanton to walk because they're not willing to push out that money. And so it's not about selling it off. It's about now finally spending a little bit.
And should we still question when they brought in Burley, Jose Reyes, and, shipped everybody off? Should we be questioning that anymore?
I mean, I would be questioning it at least in terms of, their initial, motives and the reasons on why they did that. A big part of bringing those guys in, I think that would be a very effective, at least core to your ball club. And you look at Toronto, they pretty much picked up, most of those guys. And they've, been able to be a competitive team, even though they haven't, quite, gotten over that bump and gotten into the playoffs. I feel like they feel, even in their eyes too, that they're a little bit closer and closer, and it's having that core, having the guys healthy and together. And I think if Miami would have stuck with it, you would at least see them in a Toronto-like position. I mean, it seems even without those guys, they're almost in that spot where they're, they finally worked their way out of the cellar. They're finally competitive, a little bit more. They just need to, bump it up a little bit more. But, if they would have hung on to those guys, I think they'd still be in that same spot. But you got to think, too, brought in a lot of prospects.
In the American League, Corey Kluber wins the Cy Young Award. A lot of controversy over it, whether Felix Hernandez should have won. Do you agree with the pick? And number two, who the hell is Corey Kluber?
Well, Corey Kluber, young buck, coming out of Cleveland, ended up struggling, for the beginning part of his career when it kind of, initially came up. Not, very high expectations for him, but he ended up, kind of overcoming some of those things. He kind of reached, got over the bump a little bit last season, where he had an excellent second half to the year, and everybody kind of questioned it. And then coming into this season, when you look at the Cleveland team that he pitched for, there really wasn't a whole lot, to brag about, even though Terry Francona has done a great job with the club, in terms of leading that pitching staff, he was the man. They had guys like, Justin Masterson, and several other guys that just weren't able to contribute, as the way they were expected to. So, Kluber just being simply as dominant as he has been, really, seems to, I think one of the things that kind of helped him overcome all his struggles was kind of understanding the game a little bit better and kind of learning how to use his pitches, to his advantage, you know, to kind of